Well, tens of thousands of records relating to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy have been made public for the first time. The release of 80,000 pages of documents came after an executive order by President Donald Trump honoring a campaign promise to give more transparency about the assassination. Professor Peter Ling is from the University of Nottingham in the UK, and he's also the author of After Watergate, Presidential Scandals from Nixon to Trump, along with a 2013 biography of JFK. Professor Peter Ling, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Now, reporters and researchers and people who have a theory or two about JFK's assassination are undoubtedly trawling through those thousands of pages of documents. Are we expecting to find anything groundbreaking?
I doubt it, because the CIA and the FBI, who are releasing these documents in the main, have always supported the theory that it was Lee Harvey Oswald who shot the president, and have rejected the idea that there was a second gunman. Moreover, because Trump asked for these records to be released so quickly, it's a pretty chaotic dump of records in which you find a lot of material that has no relationship at all to the Kennedy assassination. In fact, quite a bit of it is about 1968 and the two assassinations of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. There are some Australian references along the way, which is always intriguing, including one about an anonymous phone call received, or rather tracked, by Australian intelligence agencies before and after the Kennedy assassination that needs to be looked into further. So that's the kind of thing where the conspiracy theorists will really kind of think, aha, now we have a new clue.
Yes, and of course, at the moment, everything points to Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone. But why does that continue? Why do people continue to believe otherwise?
Well, as early as the 1970s, when there was a House committee on assassinations looking into the three major killings, the two major killings of Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy, they concluded that there was a high likelihood of a second gunman, partly to do with the wounds suffered by President Kennedy. And they also believed that the evidence pointed to many groups who were interested in eliminating JFK. Notoriously, the organized crime in America had very deep misgivings about Kennedy. And also there was international interest in that there were Cubans who had been Fidel Castro, first of all, had said that if Kennedy was trying to kill him, he had to be careful. Equally, anti-Castro Cubans felt that Kennedy had betrayed them because he hadn't followed through on the October missile crisis by invading Cuba and restoring democracy. So both of these groups have been identified as potentially interested in eliminating the president. And of course, Oliver Stone felt it was all to do with the military-industrial complex and getting America heavily involved in Vietnam.
Yes.
So there's lots of grist to the mill.
Yes, of course. And do you think, perhaps, as you mentioned, nothing groundbreaking would be found out of these, last trove of documents on JFK's assassination? But do you think that would finally put to bed the conspiracy theories that are out there, but also equally those that are being pushed also by the current health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., JFK's nephew?
Yes, I mean, the interesting thing is that Trump releases these things precisely because so many of his followers are ardent fans of conspiracy theories. And the reality is that even when nothing is revealed that helps their theory, they just regard this as further proof that the deep state is more sinister than they imagined and that they will hide things even deeper. And the reality, of course, is that any decent conspirator doesn't carefully document his misdeeds. You don't keep the records if you're going to do something that's illegal.
Yes, and moving forward from this, though, the president does want to, as you mentioned earlier, declassify documents relating to the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. Is that expected to be more revealing?
Well, insofar as there hasn't been as extensive an investigation into Robert Kennedy's killing, that could produce evidence of a second gunman instead of the man who's currently in prison, Sirhan. And equally, the Martin Luther King killing, given that James Earl Ray was able to escape the country and travel internationally under assumed names, it seems very likely that he was given assistance. So there was a conspiracy to assist him in the killing of Martin Luther King.
Yes, of course, there's so much talk of the CIA's involvement in this. Given it's such a secretive organization, will this continue to then fuel, conspiracy theories about these, three historic assassinations?
Yeah, I think the conspiracy theories are just too enjoyable for their participants to give up. And equally, what is interesting about the documents that have been released is you can see why the CIA didn't want them released, because many of them are to do with their management of international assets. So informants and people who are helping the CIA in different ways. And clearly, if you were trying to recruit people like that, one of the things they wanted to know was that their identity would be protected. So you can understand why they were worried. And a lot of the documents also relate to previous investigations that the CIA has tried to manage to limit the damage to its operations. So I'm a little concerned that actually Trump has given international enemies a briefing book on how the CIA operates.
Yes, and with what you just said about the CIA, does it apply to perhaps that anonymous phone call or phone calls that were made to the U.S. Embassy in Canberra just before and after JFK's assassination? What do you think might have happened in that instance?
Well, I think embassies around the world, and I think this might well have been monitoring the Soviet consulate rather than the American embassy. Embassies around the world get crank calls. It's one of the aspects of their work. And so it's only after the event that suddenly everybody thinks, oh, we had that phone call. And they need to take it seriously. So there's another reference to the fact that there was some dealings with a Polish driver of a Soviet diplomat in Canberra around the time of the Kennedy assassination. But it's all very opaque and no one can really tell whether this is the smoking gun or just one of those things that crosses the embassy's desk on a daily basis.
Yes, I think a mystery that will never draw to a close. Professor Peter Ling, it's been fascinating speaking with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.